Everybody, this is Perch, and it's time to do a little sales analysis of a different kind of book, one that I suspect at least most people who come to the channel are not particularly interested in, but this is a classic don't judge a book by its cover kind of situation. And maybe it answers a bit of this answers a few mysteries. Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. This comic debuted in November of 2015. It was part of kind of an initiative of some new characters. Moon Girl was part of the Inhumans, as kind of like in the Miss Marvel vein of things, a character who came about when Marvel was briefly trying to make the Inhumans a thing, and then rapidly retreated from that in the years following. Moon Girl was a girl that got paired up with Devil Dinosaur. And the original pitch for this said that she was originally a character who was kind of an Inspector Gadget, but a little less campy, a little more knowing what she's doing, having gadgets come out of her backpack or whatever, roller skating around the city, solving crimes, that kind of thing. And she was black. And then Marvel said a girl. The only difference was I made her younger, and that made her even cooler. She's somebody who kind of was awkward, a bit off the beaten path, and people are not aware of her. So when Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur came out, there were some criticism. I think people were not in the mood to see a young black girl character. But by and large, I think they were more annoyed by the Inhuman stuff in general. I remember some people complaining about this ruining the legacy of Moon Boy and Devil Dinosaur. But nobody cared about Moon Boy. Just let's be honest here. So this title was originally created. I guess the origin to this point is Mark Pancetta, who's a fan of Devil Dinosaur, along with editor Emily Shaw, hired Brandon Montclair and Amy Reeder to design and create this character. And you might be thinking, I'm not going to say it, but you might be thinking, this is unusual for Marvel at the time. But they did bring in Natasha Bustos, who was the artist for this comic and was the character designer, and said that she was very relieved to finally work on a character different from other superheroes. Credited the Ghibli studio, I believe, due to kind of that relationship between a monstrous character and a child, and said that Lunella, the main character, Moon Girl, was similar to herself. And I gotta just point out that it is in 2015 they went with a young black girl character, and then had two very, very white writers put this thing out. That's fine. I think that's completely fine. It just I do have to ask, would that go down today? I think Twitter and everybody would get really pissed, and they wouldn't do this again. So it's an interesting time capsule kind of event. I don't know. Maybe I'm misreading it. Anyway, the title is getting a Disney Plus cartoon, Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. That's coming out, I believe, next year in early 2022. And it ultimately ran from 2015 November through September of 2019. It had 9 regular trade paperbacks, 2 special volumes. So, hey, a series that ran for, almost 4 years, 9 trade paperbacks, a Disney Plus cartoon. It must have been doing really great. Well, let's take a look at the sales numbers. And, okay. So here's our curve. It's not a great curve, is kind of an understatement. The title debuted in November 2015 with 38,000 copies sold, floppies. This would be its high point by a long mile. I do not remember if it had, I'm sure it had variant covers because everything had variant covers, but it was not a heavily promoted book. And it quickly fell in issue 2 down just over 20,000 to 21,715. And then it took a fairly long, slow decline. From issue 2 to issue 24, the title fell from 21,000. It fell by 2/3 to 7,000 copies selling by issue 24. Now, it did have a brief blip up. Issue 19 was overshipped and had some other things going on. That got it to 14,000. And then issue 25 had some incentive programs, and there was a bunch of things going on there, and that moved it to 23,000. But generally, it hovered right at that 7,000, actually dropped down to 6,717 by issue 29. Had a couple brief upticks for starts of storylines, and then again there were some overships there on issue number 32. But by the time it gets to issue number 39, it's selling 5,878 copies, and it just continues to erode until, in the end, issue 47, nearly 4 years later, the title is selling 5,291 copies. It would be one of Marvel's lowest selling books by a pretty wide margin. So definitely didn't do well. The question mark became, and what's interesting is several people then did commentaries and videos asking why. Why did this comic make it to 47? I mean, 47 is like a age-old number in today's standard. Like that, most Marvel books can't even contemplate that sale. Like how did it remotely get there? That's just kind of baffling. But still, it survived until issue 47. Natasha Bustos did leave the title kind of 2/3 of the way through it, and some other creators came in. Amy Reeder, I believe, also left it, but Brandon Montclair stayed with it to the end. The title, over the course of this story, they did a few things, just general misadventures. I mean, it was a girl and her dinosaur and hijinks. They met the daughter of Ego, the planet. I think they met Galactus at one point. There's a handful of kind of crazy things that would go on. There's a robot double that went on that ran amok, the various team ups. The title, for inexplicable reasons, they would have Moon Girl show up in like other in Secret Warriors during Secret Empire. I believe the title crossed over with Monsters Unleashed, and just kind of a very strange little bit. They did have a storyline kind of late in the series where Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, had a secret daughter named Princess, and Princess was a bitch. And that was some good comedy there. But anyway, so let's take a look. Okay, disappointing sales, very low sales. It was one of Marvel's lowest selling books in floppy by a massive margin. You can't look at this and not go, well, what was going on? How did this keep being printed? Undoubtedly, the floppies were losing money at this point. So we move over to the trades. The trades are also, a little bit better. The first volume, BFF, made just under 6,000 copies for that first volume of the trade paperback. But then the others kind of all fell below the 2,000 mark. They kept producing them, 2,000 for volume 2, and then it continued to inch down by the volume 8. We're at under 1,000. And as I mentioned, there was there were a couple special editions. There was a collection of her appearances, other titles, and other things. But this is a core trades for her run. Which, again, nothing particularly fancy. Given the sales of the floppies and then the sales of the trade, this title is still not moved into any kind of profitable zone for Marvel in the direct market. So you might be asking yourself at this point, again, why is Marvel publishing this? It must be some kind of plot to give books to white people, to give. I'm just joking. It must be some kind of plot of keeping this book around for nefarious reasons. Well, let's take a look at one more data point before we sign off here. Call this thing a whole failure, a boring video of just poor sales. Scholastic. This title was offered through Scholastic book fairs, not for the floppy, but for the trades. And let's take a look at some Scholastic. Now, I was able to reach out, and I was actually, miracle miracles, I was able to get some Scholastic numbers direct from the source. And holy shit. The Scholastic numbers are so right now I've got the blue line is for the direct market for Diamond, and the orange line there is Scholastic. And what you will notice is that you can barely see the blue line because the graph has tilted so much with the Scholastic numbers. Now, by the way, in the interest of fairness, what this chart doesn't represent are the sales through Amazon. However, some titles, some graphic novels make their way from the direct market, from the blue, or sometimes even the orange in a very weird way. Those can make their way to Amazon through other sellers. So some of these books, that's why I don't have a third line showing Amazon. But if we are looking at the Amazon numbers, the trades for Moon Girl typically always debuted in the top 25 of Marvel graphic novels and have done fairly well. Moon Girl, unlike any other, unlike Squirrel Girl or Wasp, America Chavez, whatever it happens to be, Moon Girl has been the most consistent seller, the one who's stayed relevant the longest. But these numbers for Scholastic are absurd. To give you a sense, the BFF Volume 1, the sales of Scholastic Moon Girl, almost triple the best Donny Cates graphic novel that has ever, trade paperback that's ever been produced by Marvel through the direct market. These are good numbers. And I'll put it this way. Does this make the book profitable? Oh, hell yes. Yes, it makes the book probably, I don't know. It's in the top 50%. It's probably in the top 25% of profit for the company. I also have two caveats that undoubtedly the margin that Marvel makes from Scholastic is lower. I think that there's educational aspects to that vertical. It's not apples to apples in terms of the money it's being made. The other thing that's worth noting here is it's hard to know how much the creators and people are being paid for this book. It wasn't the highest selling floppy, obviously, so no doubt the contracts were bent that way. But regardless, it made money. Clearly, this book was profitable. Like there's zero doubt with these numbers. This book, how profitable? It's hard to say exactly how profitable, but definitely based on what I'm seeing here, based on the numbers, all off the back of Scholastic, this thing would be in the top half of Marvel Comics. And when you look at these numbers, it probably answers a question that you might have had, which is why in the world did Marvel keep publishing this comic? Well, because of this channel. Why is Disney making a cartoon of this? Because of this, because of the fact it did well in Scholastic. It did better in Scholastic than Miss Marvel. It did better in Scholastic than Squirrel Girl. Moon Girl was the winner by all accounts in terms of sales through that channel. And think about it. It's a girl character who's smart and gets into kind of hijinks at school and has a pet dinosaur. Of course it's going to do well in the Scholastic Book Fair market, where their mascot has a giant red dog holding a sign. That's Clifford, I believe. Anyway, so what does all this tell us? What analysis can we read this? Well, the book sold really well outside of the direct market comic shop, which, that's what you've just seen. The direct market, the floppy sales were dismal. I mean, they were very, very bad. The direct market graphic novels were on the poor side. A BFF, making 6,000 copies of the volume 1. That's a success for Marvel, believe it or not, through the direct market. But it's still that's nothing to get excited about. Most of the main titles, the X-Men stuff, the Avengers stuff, Spider-Man stuff, those graphic novel collections, trade paperbacks. I keep saying graphic novel, trade paperbacks. Those all are doing better. However, of course, did really well in Scholastic. So if the book did really well outside of the direct market, it begs the question, why in the hell did they ship it to the direct market in the first place? And if you have this question, that's a good question. If you're designing a book that does well with kids and sells well in Scholastic, why in the hell are you printing it as a floppy and putting it in comic shops where it is dying a miserable death? Well, I think a couple reasons. I think that, I say in all seriousness, it's likely a case of the comic books were being produced anyway. They're being produced for the trade market. After a pretty short amount of time, seeing the success at Scholastic, it kept this book alive because they were making content for that channel. And was a smart business decision. They made it into floppies because that was their mechanism. That was how they were geared to make these books. And so why not? They likely lost a bit of money on the floppies, but they made so much more in the trade that I suspect somebody in Marvel was thinking, hey, this will be a loss leader. We know we're going to make money somewhere else. And maybe, just maybe, We'll feed the direct market comic shops with some content for kids because a lot of retailers are regularly asking Marvel and DC to give us more kid content. So, hey, we'll put it out there. Kids can buy it. Super. Otherwise, we just know our secured money is going to be happening through the schools. So that's most likely the answer there. But all this, what else? To summarize, this just goes to show some comics do really well in other markets. Getting the attention of kids is good. That is smart. And this comic was absolutely a success for Marvel, especially targeting that market. This was on track for what they were doing. It's an interesting aspect. I guess the primary question I have, which is the opposite, I think, of what a lot of people are asking about this title, is why isn't it still going? Why isn't this comic still being made? It's clearly making money in this spot. Why is Marvel not doing? Why not? Well, I have no idea, to be honest with you. The title seemed to have established a fairly consistent sales rate. I mean, it was falling there a little bit at the end, but I mean, if you're Scholastic, you're getting 30,000 copies of the trade paperback out. That you keep printing that shit. That is exceeding Venom trade sales right now in the direct market. So you keep doing that. But I can only ponder. I mean, it's possible there was some disconnect with an editorial. It's possible that Marvel and Disney are kind of reorienting things to do a big launch when the TV show came out. It's possible that there was some optics around having a little girl black character and having a white dude write it. I hope not. That would be painful for me to. Nobody wants to think that way. Good goddamn. I would hope not. But it is mysterious this book isn't being printed. It's funny because I read a lot of articles of people who assumed the title was doing well somewhere else, but didn't actually do the homework to go find out. My request for the numbers, I got it immediately. I didn't have even a special insider. I just made a request, and 2 days later I had it. It was baffling. But there you have it. The proof to what some people were saying. Yes, the money was coming from other places. And in the end, the question is not, why were they printing this comic? The question is, why did they stop? And I don't have an answer to that. But anyway, something a little different. I had a little twist in there, right? Anyway, let me know your thoughts and your questions below. This book's not for me. As a grown man, this book is not for me. But book clearly resonated with the younger audience, and that's something to celebrate. So cool. Good on you. But funny times. Anyway, ask your questions below. I'll answer them best you can. And like and subscribe, as always. And thanks for listening.